Alrighty. Let's see if we can get this to work. Here we go to this thing here. Just give me a second to make sure everything is working okay. Can I see it? Okay, looks like it's working. So I'm going to start going and see if this thing works. So, hello. I am Paul from Paul Reads, and I'm going to try to do this live stream here. It's going to be covering 2 Stephen King books, The Institute and Blood and Smoke. Blood and Smoke is a audio-only collection of 3 short stories, and The Institute is one of his normal novels. So let me start with Blood and Smoke. Blood and Smoke, I'll read the synopsis here. Stephen King reads 3 of his classic short stories, including 1408, now a feature film. Enter a nightmarish mindscape of unrelenting horror and shocking revelations as... Oh, why is it just not working? It's not coming up anyway. It says it's working, but it's not. And I'm live according to this. Alrighty, I don't know why. It says it's working. It says I've been going live for 2 minutes. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going. And we'll figure this out. Okay. So Stephen King, Blood and Smoke, talks about 3 of his classic short stories, including 1408, which was a feature film. Also in this 3 stories is In the Death Room and Lunch at the Gotham Cafe. All 3 of these stories do have smoke or smoking related stories in all of them. The first one was Lunch at the Gotham Cafe, which covered a guy who was seeing his soon-to-be ex-wife in a meeting with her lawyer. And there is a crazy maitre d' at this swanky restaurant in New York City. And some crazy things happen at the luncheon. I didn't find this that interesting. I felt like it, besides being short, it also just was just kind of out there as a story. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't that great to me. The second story, which actually took place in 2 chapters, was 1408. Now, I don't remember the movie 1408, but the actual story, listening to it, was really good. I mean, this one I actually really enjoyed. It makes me want to actually go back and watch now the 1408 movie that they used this as the inspiration, because the story was really good. I really did enjoy it. The third one was the worst one for me, which was In the Death Room. This took place in, I guess, like in a Latin American country where this reporter was basically being kind of interrogated by these 3 people, or 4 people. And yeah, I just didn't like it at all. The one problem I did have with this is an audio-only short story collection. The one biggest problem I had with this is that Stephen King, as you can see here, is the narrator. And that just did not work for me at all. He is not a good narrator. He's a great author, but as a narrator, not good at all. So I just could not get into two of these three stories. 1408 was actually so good it didn't really matter to me who the narrator was because the story was really cool. But the other two stories, not worth it at all in this audio collection. I am part of Scribd, I guess is what they call it. It's a Simon & Schuster like Audible type of company. This is why I'm actually being able to listen to and read more Stephen King books. And these are one of the first ones I've actually read, and I did like the service, but I'm glad I didn't actually pay for this. Even though I'd really like 1408. I might want like just grabbing 1408 by itself and forget the other two stories, then it might not be that bad. But those other two stories were just, to me, totally wasteful. Just not good at all. So let me get to the big book here, which is The Institute, which I also read on Scribner. This was Stephen King talking about children again, kind of. I will see if I can find the actual synopsis of this story here. Let's see. Okay, here it is. In the middle of the night, in a house on a quiet street in suburban Minneapolis, intruders silently murder Luke Ellis's parents and load him into a black SUV. The operation takes less than 2 minutes. Luke will wake up at the Institute in a room that looks just like his own, except there is no window, and outside his door are other doors, behind which are other kids with special talents, telekinesis, and telepathy, who got to this place the same way Luke did. Kalisha, Nick, George, Iris, and 10-year-old Avery Dixon, they are all in the front half. Others, Luke learns, graduated to back half, like the Roach Motel. Callista says, you check in, but you don't check out. In this most sinister of institutions, the director, Mrs. Sigsbee, and her staff are ruthlessly dedicated to extracting from these children the force of their extraordinary gifts. There are no scruples here. If you go along, you get tokens for the vending machine. If you don't, punishment is brutal. As each new victim disappears to back half, Luke becomes more and more desperate to get out and get help. But no one has ever escaped from the Institute. As psychically terrifying as Firestarter, with the spectacular kid power of it, The Institute is Stephen King's gut-wrenching dramatic story of good versus evil in a world where the good guys don't always win. Interesting that they mentioned Firestarter, because it did remind me a little bit of Firestarter as far as like a government organization that kind of, exploiting children's, psychic kind of power. The cool thing, I guess, about Luke is he's basically super intelligent, and before he gets kidnapped, they're basically talking about sending him to this school for gifted children, which isn't what this institute is. It's got nothing to do with intelligence. It's all got to do with the fact that he has this little telekinesis power that when he has emotional outbursts, like pizza pans will shake, or things will move a little bit. And you find out basically what they're using these kids who have either telepathy or telekinesis, or both, which becomes a sticking point of the story. And of course, the kids kind of escape. I won't spoil it too much, but just like Firestarter, there is an escape, and there is a little bit of a reckoning with the organization. And while I liked the story, I didn't think it was a bad story. It wasn't a great Stephen King. Maybe, I don't know if Stephen King is losing a little bit of his luster for me. There is one thing in the beginning of the story which actually doesn't have to do with the abduction, but it kind of sets up something for later on, where he kind of takes a jab at Trump. And I saw it in some of the reviews that people talked about. And while I'm definitely not a fan of Trump, and I don't want to get too political with this story, it wasn't necessary. It truly wasn't necessary. I'll even tell you the jab so you're aware of it, because it has nothing to do with the story. Basically, the jab is this library doesn't have enough money, and they say, well, it's because Trump doesn't care about the arts, or something of that nature. Why? It made no sense. In fact, if anybody's going to complain about Trump complaining about how he cut aid to libraries, to me, it seems a real stupid thing to argue about, and it really didn't need to be even mentioned. It could have just said, the funding was cut, and don't even mention Trump. But that's what they did. They talked about that. And in general, I would probably give this only, if I had a 5-star book, this is probably like a 3, maybe even a 2. I mean, it really isn't something that's going to be memorable to me. I think the books that they mentioned here at the end, Firestarter and It, are way better representations of what he's done. And I was actually pretty disappointed with The Institute. I mean, there are other books I have to read. You have to read If It Bleeds and Elevation. But otherwise, this was actually pretty underwhelming for me. And, I wasn't really into it. And that's basically my review for Stephen King's The Institute and Blood and Smoke. Blood and Smoke, 1408. Great story. The other two, lackluster. Institute, if you're not a big Stephen King fan, honestly, I could tell you could probably skip it. I don't really think it brings much to the table as far as a horror book goes. And those are my thoughts. So, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon.